Hi everyone, Alexandra, Jupiter returns here with your day-by-day weekly astrology forecast for the week commencing the 17th of February. And it's a really busy week, a really jam-packed week, so bear with me. We've got a lot to cover today, and so I thought I'd take a seat and give myself a little bit of a break, which is a bit of a theme actually for what we're moving into. If you read my write-up on my Facebook page about some of the energy that we're now moving into with the Mercury retrograde, you'll understand a little bit about it. So let's dive in straight away into where we find ourselves right now. And as you may know, as you may already be aware, Mercury over there in Pisces, we're going to switch because Mercury is now retrograde. So this is the commencement of the second phase of the retrograde process, a process that actually started back on February the 7th. So on February the 7th, Mercury went into pre-retrograde shadow at 28 degrees of Aquarius. So where Mercury has been covering in your chart since that date is we're now going retrograde, going to go right back over all of those kinds of things. And that's going to take basically between the 16th of February until the 10th of March. Mercury will be in retrograde for that whole period. By which time Mercury will have gone back to 28 degrees of Aquarius, will then station direct on March the 10th and recover this area for a third time. So the third part of the whole of the process, and that actually takes us right up until the 31st of March. So we're not out of, completely out of it, although Mercury will go direct on the 10th of March, we're not completely out of the whole Mercury retrograde phase until the 31st of March. So bear that in mind. So I just thought I'd take a brief moment here just to cover, there's all sorts of information out there available about Mercury retrograde, and I'm aware that we all have different understandings of it, so let me just cover it right now. Mercury retrograde is essentially a time that has become famous, I suppose, for causing disruptive events, usually centered around two things. Movement, which Mercury likes a lot of. If you know anyone that has a lot of Mercury in their chart, Geminis particularly, it's quite, it gets easily bored, okay? So there's a like of busyness, there's a like of variety, there's a like of doing lots of little things and having lots of little interactions throughout the day as well. It basically, Mercury likes communication, and it likes movement, so it likes short distance travel. So these are the two areas where often issues can show up, because when Mercury is going retrograde, it's essentially the influence of the planet is trying to get us to pay more attention somewhere in our inner world. And in order to drive us into that area of ourselves that we don't really contact very often, it kind of makes life a bit messy out there, a bit confusing, and it disrupts the outer world, the macrocosm, so that we can pay a little bit more attention to the microcosm. Essentially, that's the whole idea, as far as I interpret the purpose of this cosmic event. So you can expect travel issues, confusions and disruptions, delays with travel, missed luggage can happen. So just be prepared, essentially. If you're going to be making if you're going to be doing some traveling, if you're going to be making a journey, just prepare yourself, empower yourself by knowing that this is going to be taking place, and just prepare yourself for the worst. Make sure everything is labeled correctly. Make sure you have perhaps some items on you if you're going on an airplane or something, in case your luggage gets lost, something like that. With communication, again, it's something where misinterpretations are rife. There can be delays in receiving communication. There can be lots of mistakes, like thinking you sent a message and finding out that you didn't send it, or a message, an idea or a thought that you wanted to put across being misunderstood, misrepresenting yourself, all of these things. So it's just not a time to expect clarity around communication. So try, if you can, just to bear that in mind for this period of time, that, you know, perhaps you could be getting the wrong end of the stick, or someone else could be doing that, and just hold a bit of space for the potentiality that things really aren't quite as they seem with regards to communication. Not the best time in the world for signing any contracts, making any deals, that kind of thing. It's something that essentially would need to be redone again. If you have to, then of course you have to, but the advice I would give you is to triple check everything. You know, the retrograde is in 3 phases, so triple check everything. And if you can, get 3 sets of eyes to check something if it's really important. Get, you know, yourself and perhaps 2 others or 3 others just to check over it, give it a different perspective. Maybe even someone who has Mercury retrograde in their own birth chart, because actually for a lot of people that have that, Mercury retrograde is a favorable time. It's a time when actually they quite like this, this kind of effect. So Mercury retrograde is taking place in the sign of Pisces. So this is really interesting actually, because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, and Virgo is the opposite sign to Pisces. And this means that Mercury isn't entirely comfortable in Pisces. Mercury likes things to be clear and precise. It likes order. And in Virgo in particular, it likes purity. It likes real cleanliness and clarity. Pisces tends to make things a little bit blurred, let's say, foggy. These are some of the words that are used around Pisces. Essentially, it's control with Virgo. Virgo is very kind of orderly, and chaos with Pisces, as Pisces really wants you to slip out of control and move into a place where there aren't boundaries, there aren't rules, there aren't structures. So this is the place where we really have a huge amount of imagination and creativity, where we can just let ourselves wander, let the mind wander and see where it takes us. Okay, if we're always using a map in life, we're going to miss those side streets and the different alleyways and things that take us into the really interesting and exciting places off the beaten track. So Mercury, being the ruler of journeys, is wanting to take you off the beaten track in terms of parts of yourself. Pisces rules the 12th house of the chart, and the 12th house of the chart is also known as the place of hidden things and the place of our self-undoing. So perhaps using this Mercury retrograde to journey into those places can be a really good use, a really good channeling of this opportunity, so that we can discover our own side roads, our own little hidden alleyways, and see what lays down there. It's really, really great time to get a different perspective, a different view, and to get some deep insight into ourselves. So if you're a person that's on a journey of self-growth, self-awareness, this is a fantastic time to use. It's not ideal for, you know, the day-to-day life, but the spiritual life, absolutely fantastic. So Pisces is that last sign of the zodiac, and it is the sign of retreat. It's the sign of going within. It's a sign of taking some rest time. Pisces rules sleep and the dream world. And these are the places where we can access that aspect of ourselves. So see how you could use and reframe your beliefs and understanding about Mercury retrograde to see if actually this could be a really creative time for you, and something that's super helpful to you, rather than just being something that, makes you break down or or misread an email or something like that. So just a slightly different perspective. The other news that we have today is Mars, the sign of that rules Aries, and also the co-ruler of Scorpio. Mars is moving out of the sign of Sagittarius and into Capricorn, so it's joining everything that we've got going on over there in Capricorn. This is quite a difference in terms of energy. Mars in Sagittarius loves to just be spontaneous. It's that fiery, passionate energy that loves an adventure. And so it's kind of like, you know, to hell with everything. Let's just get on a plane and go and have an adventure, or, you know, let's just have some spontaneous, crazy kind of outing or something like that. It just wants to do something spur of the moment. In Capricorn, it's super, super grounded energy. So it's quite different from Sagittarius. And essentially, this is where Mars's energy is actually exalted in the sign of Capricorn because it's tempered. So all the passion and enthusiasm and will to make something happen that we have with Mars is tempered, and it's made to sort of last a bit longer. So this is more of the marathon. Here, Mars has to learn some patience and a little bit of restraint, and it has to learn that, you know, good things come to those who wait. And certainly lasting things, lasting pleasure comes to those who wait and show a little bit of restraint and really focus that energy into something a little bit calmer, a little bit more considered, and something that has a longer term view. So it's really supportive. If you have planets in the earth signs there, you get a little bit of an extra dose of energy now with Mars moving through that sign. And the fire signs, well, maybe they have enough already. So yeah, Mars, capture that energy, slow, disciplined use of energy. This is really, really good stuff to engage with and just capture, yeah, that essence of just cool your boots and just do things slow and steady wins the race. You know, Capricorns, you look at a Capricorn in real life and it can be a struggle for Capricorns earlier in life, but with time, they show mastery. Everything tends to come good later on in life with Capricorns and Saturn placements. And that sort of teaches us this lesson of time and the passage of time and how wisdom comes through that longer term experience. And that's something really to treasure. So we have the moon in Sagittarius as well today, keeping us hanging on to that hopeful, optimistic, exciting energy of Sagittarius. We had quite a journey with the moon moving through Scorpio over Valentine's Day on Friday and deep into the weekend. So that might have been some heavy energy, some deep energy. But remember, we are still in the waning phase of the moon cycle. The moon, if you look up in the night sky at the moment, she's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as the days go past. So this is a time of integrating our lessons and now really moving into the phase where we let go. So we have that last quarter square aspect on Friday and into Saturday. That was that decision point of, okay, what's coming with me on my new journey and what stays behind? And now we've made that decision. Now is the time where we really do the letting go. It's the time to really release so that we can make space for something better to come into as the new cycle begins with the new moon at the end of the week. And I'll move on to that shortly. So really engage with that sentiment of, yeah, this is the time now that I release and let go. So we've got between these three signs now for this quarter of the cycle: Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius, that we're doing our releasing in. So we'll walk through that as we go through. So moving on to Tuesday the 18th. The moon will have moved right through Sagittarius and is going to meet up with Mars in Capricorn. So this is really going to move us into that Mars in Capricorn energy, actually. really bringing into our feeling nature more of a sense of perhaps some more emotional groundedness, just a tempering of our passions, and really quite a strong desire to make our mark in the world, get somewhere, make things happen in the long term. We could be really feeling a pull towards doing those kinds of things as the moon moves past. And then on Tuesday the 18th, the moon and Mars will then trine down to Uranus. So we have Uranus, the great awakener, this liberating, reinventive kind of energy that we have. And all of these words, reinventive, reincarnate, redo, rethink, these are all retrograde words. You know, retrograde starts with re. So all of these things are really good things to be redoing as we go through the Mercury retrograde. But Uranus can really bring about a reinvention to our lives. If something's stale and old and tired and yeah, it just needs like a burst of freshness, this is what Uranus can bring. So as the moon and Mars meet up at the beginning of Capricorn, they're going to form this easy communication, this easy contact down to Uranus in Taurus that's going to give some new stimulation and ideas as to, you know, what that thing we're trying to achieve could look like, or what it might be. That's something a little bit different from the ordinary. It's kind of like finding your USP, you know, your unique selling point. Capricorn is the area of business, and we're trying to achieve something in our life. We're trying to achieve a status, a position, if you like, within Capricorn. And so this is saying, you know, come up with something really new in terms of how you view that area of your life. How is your structure, the formation of your life as we're moving forward? How is that going to look if we can look at it with a really new and cutting edge kind of approach, which is what Uranus loves. So that's going to be some really supportive energy that you can tap into that might help you to kind of come up with some new ideas around things. So yeah, with the waxing moon phase, it's really helping us with Mars there to cut the ties with the old. Mars moving through Capricorn. You know, we've had so much going on with Capricorn, with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction starting that new cycle with those guys there. Really is, as I've mentioned a lot now, and it's worth repeating because it's in the background for the whole of this year. It's this pulling apart of the old ways and redesigning it so that we can put a structure together that's better in terms of moving forwards. So with Mars now ingressing Capricorn, that's bringing a whole new energy into the situation of what's happening there. And as Mars moves further forward, we're going to see more of that. So Mars rules sharp things. It rules cutting, blades, and burning as well, fire and heat. So it really can assist with essentially cutting out and removing or burning away the things that really are old and done with about this old system. It's really going to empower us and fire us up to cut ties with what's really not serving us and what really has no place in the future looking forwards. I was listening to a program on the radio this morning about climate change, for example, and this is a big part of Uranus in Taurus, giving us a wake-up call about Gaia, Mother Earth, Taurus energy. And they were talking about us having to be, the whole planet, carbon neutral by 2050, just 30 years away. Now that's, you know, not that far away at all. It seems long term when we're looking at, for example, you know, what's happening in my life this week. But that will come around very, very quickly. And actually, that's not a lot of time to do a heck of a lot of work. So this is the kind of energy we need to be tapping into. what really does need a serious cutting back so that we can, facilitate a longer term view. So see what shows up there for you and how you can connect with that. Now on Wednesday, we have the sun moving out of Aquarius and into Pisces. So this is the start of Pisces season. So happy birthday to all the beautiful fellow fishies like me. I'm a Pisces too. What this heralds is a change of energy out of the Aquarius air energy and back into the sensitive, emotional water energies, the more soulful energies, where of course we have Mercury retrograde. So again, there's going to be more focus on the emotional world, on the spiritual world, on the world of how we connect to each other. This also means that this is the beginning of the end. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It occupies the natural 12th house position on the zodiacal wheel. And so when the sun is at the first degree of Pisces, it's the beginning of the end of that cycle. It's also the beginning of the end of winter. Hooray! It's a mutable sign. So each season has a mutable sign at the end to help to move us out of one season and into the next. Now, if this is something that really interests you, understanding the connection of the planets to what is happening down here on Earth in terms of our seasons and our cycles, then you may be interested. In March, I will be running a workshop on this locally to go through this. Really is beautiful knowledge to have, connecting with the natural rhythms of the earth. And so watch out for that coming up. So yes, the beginning of the end. And it's a time for us really to contemplate, how have I got to where I am? We're closing off one cycle now. This is when we're coming into the last month of the natural year. We celebrate New Year's Eve at the 31st of December, which doesn't really have any correlation to the natural wheel. We're now moving into the very last month of the natural wheel, and as so we're giving thought, we're going back within, and we're retreating and spending some time in our inner realm in order to just ascertain, okay, what was that cycle all about? What has come up for me? How did I get to where I am right now? And again, this is going to pull us into these energies. The nodes of the moon, the lunar nodes, are still in Cancer and Capricorn, where we've been having eclipses for a little while now. And this is really about our history. Cancer is all about our history, our ancestors, our roots, where have we come from, and our status, our society, the fabric and system that we find ourselves working in. So this is the perfect opportunity to look at those two things and just give some thought to how that influences you as a person. Where have you been influenced, perhaps by your upbringing, perhaps by the DNA that's flowing through your blood, the energy imprint that your ancestors have left within you, the system that you find yourself living in and having to be part of, the society that we have made. How do all these things influence you? How have they influenced you in the last cycle of your life, the last year or longer? Because it's not until we really engage with and question and have some insight, some inwards focus that this Mercury retrograde is going to give us, that we really start to make a conscious decision about who we are as people. We're not just playing a part based on other people's ideals. We're deciding for ourselves, who is it that I want to be? How have I been influenced? And how would I actually perhaps like to create some boundary around that and say, well, actually, no, I don't want to be influenced by that. or perhaps this is a time when we can recognize just how significantly influenced we are. You know, we've had the news over the weekend of the very tragic death by suicide of a beautiful, intelligent young woman in the media. Another thing that's ruled by Pisces is appearing on camera, because it rules the lens, how we view things, how we see things, and the influence of society and how that's the part that's played in getting her to the end of her cycle so tragically. We have to start giving a lot of thought to what are we taking from the pool of consciousness that we're all swimming through, and what are we contributing to it as well? And can we have a little bit more cleanliness and purity around that, because that's what Mercury brings. Mercury is also about healing and health. So this is a diagnostic time with Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Go within, have a look around, diagnose. Where did this come from? Does this belong here? Should this be here, or does it need a cleanup? And the sun's really going to help with this, because the sun is a big light. So it's going to be shining on all of those hidden areas and hidden realms to really support us. So use Pisces season for doing that. I think it's beautiful that we have the Mercury retrograde at the same time. I think it's going to be a really, really great time for anyone doing that inner work. So yes, it's a case of channeling the desirable aspects is something that we'd like to do a little bit more with astrology. And with the sun meeting, moving into Pisces, we also have a lovely situation where, if I just move these guys out of the way, Jupiter up there in Capricorn is going to form a pleasant, pleasing aspect with Neptune. Now, both Neptune and Jupiter are co-rulers of Pisces. So it's wonderful when these guys come together in this kind of aspect. If we put in a little bit of effort, then we can really channel the absolute most desirable things that these can bring us, the most wanted influences that they can have on us. So this really is the essence of the dream, the ideal, okay? Jupiter is optimistic. It's very far-reaching, so it likes a big plan. And it sees things in a very happy way, in a very benevolent and generous way. Jupiter people are very giving and very forgiving. So when you combine that with the dreamy, compassionate qualities of Neptune as well, hugely creative, hugely visionary. This is where the idealism comes from of Pisces. And yes, that can be naivety. We can see things and people and situations as being a little bit better than perhaps they really are in reality. But if we have our feet on the ground, and I think, you know, Mars and the moon for its time in Capricorn will help to ground us a little bit. If we can keep our feet on the ground and just allow ourselves to dream and to visualize a better way, a more idealistic, loving, forgiving, kind and compassionate way, this is going to be something that can really help shape our future. So it's creating the ideal vision, a compassionate view, and connecting with our dream. Okay, whatever that dream is for you, that longer term dream, I think Mercury retrograde back into Aquarius, which helps us with our long-term goals. This is all part of how it's connecting up, is the way that I see it. So see what you can do. There's so much Piscean energy around at the moment. It's a really beautiful time to just go within, retreat, restore, have a little bit more of a spiritual life, essentially, if you can, in whatever way that is for you, whether it's spending time at the beach, spending time in prayer, spending time in meditation and contemplation, however it looks for you. And acts of kindness as well. Random acts of kindness would be lovely, to just kind of channel the energy in a desirable way. And when we channel that energy, when we consciously decide to make a connection with it and use it for a certain purpose, we are giving it somewhere to direct itself. And if we don't do that, then that's when it can show up in ways where we don't have any say in the situation. So when we're not channeling these influences, that's when things happen to us. And we don't really want life to just happen to us. That's becoming a victim. And that is something also that's related to the sign of Pisces, the victimhood. There's disillusionment as well with these Piscean energies. Oh, well, I didn't think it was like that. Gosh, I'm disillusioned and the world is actually just this awful place. Going into that kind of feeling, we don't want to be doing all of that. We just want to keep grounded, and we want to use this energy so that we're not used by it. So Thursday, the moon will move deeper through Capricorn and will give us a little bit of a revisit on that Saturn-Pluto conjunction again. So the potential for some heavier energies, but bear in mind, this lovely aspect that we have between Jupiter and Neptune is actually going to carry us through this period as well. So we've got a good few days of that beautiful, blissful, idealistic energy. So when the moon is taking us into that Saturn-Pluto place, in her waning phase, remember this is a time when we're releasing, we're letting go. So the things that are washing up to the surface on this moon, this can be a time where we're saying goodbye to these things that don't really form part of who we are anymore. Maybe by this time we've had to think about how our society has influenced us and decided, no, I don't really want to have that. I don't want it to have that control over me. Pluto and Saturn, these are planets about power and control. So, this is a time to ascertain perhaps where you've unwittingly given your power away and say, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. This is something that's going to stay in the past, something that I'm going to let go of. Friday, the moon will then move into Aquarius, and Mars at this point, Mars will have moved a little way through Capricorn, and we'll be creating a tense aspect this time, a provocative and irritating aspect known as a square, and that's going to be over to Chiron in Aries. Aries, being ruled by Mars, is going to pick up on that energy quite easily because Aries is obviously familiar with the Martian influence. So Mars squaring Chiron could provoke within us a little bit of work that we still need to do around our wounds. And in order to do that, obviously, we need to be aware of them. So Mars is just going to be grabbing your attention a little bit around this stuff. But Mars is, he's valiant, he's the warrior, he's the hero. So if we can channel the energy of being the victor in the situation, that would be the way to use this, especially with it now being in Capricorn and saying, I'm in this for the long haul. I can deal with this. My energy is very, very, I've got a lot of tenacity with Mars in Capricorn. So actually, I'm not going to shy away from and be a victim here. I'm going to be the victor. I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to be my hero, Aries, me. I'm going to be my hero around my woundedness. So that might be perhaps taking a little bit more responsibility for the part that you consciously or even unconsciously have played a part in that stuff, but also the responsibility for your healing and how addressing the things that are still there and still need to be done, even though you may have done a lot of work already, as many of us have, or perhaps there might be a little bit more to do. And that's okay. That's fantastic. We're making progress, and progress is everything for Mars in Capricorn. So it's also a bit of a reminder with all this Piscean spiritual energy going on. It's a bit of it could be a sharp reminder of our mortality. Aries is where we incarnate, and that literally means where we become meat. So we get our body in Aries, we get our flesh. Okay, this is where the soul of the spirit of Pisces becomes the physical form. And we can forget that, especially if we are in the spiritual community or doing a lot of spiritual kind of work or work around our consciousness, and certainly our attention is being pulled that way at the moment. This can be just a reminder about actually, your body matters, your mortality matters. You need to take care of that stuff as well. And we need to really appreciate the vulnerability of our physical form. And that's something, again, that is a Piscean theme as well. Have we been vulnerable to our ancestors, our upbringing, our family, our home life, and our society and the structure that we live in? Has some of that caused this wound that we carry around that tells us you're not good enough, you don't fit, other people are better than you, other people are more successful than you with Capricorn. By your age, you really should have X, Y, and Z. You should have this much in the bank and this much in the pension pot and all of these things. Or, you should have had children by now, or you should be settled down. All of these things, it'd be completely unique for you. But it's just being reminded, essentially, and taking this time to explore that wound, take responsibility for it, and be the warrior, be the victor, don't be a victim. And not escaping either, not wanting to just float off and bypass, do this spiritual bypassing that all this Pisces energy might have you wanting to do. I'll just lie down in a gong bath and it'll wash it all away. No, the warrior Aries actually has to do something about this. You have to take action a lot of the time as well. So getting the balance right there. And then Saturday, it's really, look how close now. The moon moving through Aquarius. This is the final moments of the cycle, this current lunar cycle. And this really is, Saturday is all about release. Saturdays are ruled by the planet Saturn. And with Saturn, and on Saturdays, it can be a good day to have a practice of discipline, because that's what Saturn likes. It can be a time of foregoing some pleasure and in order to achieve a longer term goal. And I think that fits very nicely with it being the end of the current lunar cycle and being this time of release and letting go. So give some thoughts to where the new moon will be taking place at the beginning of Pisces. I'll talk about that in a moment. What's now being released and let go of so that something new and better can come into. Beautiful energies around this week to really connect you to the inner realm so that you can really make a conscious decision about this. Really connect with this new moon. It's a gorgeous new moon. The new moon itself takes place on Sunday, the 23rd, at around 3 p.m. here in the UK. So the moon will join up with the sun at 4 degrees of Pisces. So this is this beautiful, creative moment in time where new life is formed. We have the divine feminine energy of the moon and the divine masculine energy of the sun meeting up in the sky. And it creates a blank canvas. We don't see the moon in the sky anymore. It's saying, okay, this is where we come up with something completely new. So where is Pisces in your chart? What is around 4 degrees of Pisces? That's going to help you refine down where you sow the seeds of intention, where you're wanting to create something completely new. If you're not familiar with your chart, or you'd like to do some work with me, book one of my Moondala readings. These are really popular now, I'm glad to say. They're just half an hour, £25, really affordable, once a month. And we sit down together, look, or via Zoom, sit down, look at your chart, and we work out, okay, how are you going to use this? Where's the new moon for you? What planets are involved? What angles are involved? Where's the full moon? What's showing up? And then we work with the cycles on a longer term basis as well. So if you want to book one of those, great, get in touch, or just look on your chart, see where 4 degrees Pisces is. It's making some beautifully supportive aspects to other planets. So we have a sextile over to Mars there in Capricorn. So if you've done a little bit of work throughout the week in terms of connecting with Mars, that's going to really pay off at this new moon. So supportive energy over to Mars. We also have this exact same energy over to Uranus. So these sextiles are really, really helpful to that reinvention energy, that radical, new, fresh, exciting energy of Uranus. Really wanting you to reinvent yourself or reinvent what's happening in this area of your chart. We also have supportive aspects to the north node of the moon in Capricorn and the south node in, no, I've got that the wrong way around. The south node of the moon in Capricorn will have a sextile, and the north node of the moon in Cancer is going to have a trine. So the north node, which is, you know, pulling us where we want to be going, is such an easy flow of energy that doesn't even need any work from us. So anything that you're doing around, anything you're doing around planting intentions, if they come from a pure heart, if they come from connection with the divine within you, which is what Pisces is all about, then it's just really going to speak loudly and clearly to the north node of destiny in the moon's own sign of Cancer. The moon rules the sign of Cancer. So beautiful energy, and a little bit of effort required there with the south node. And this is you saying, okay, that's what I'm leaving behind, and I'm integrating what it's taught me. I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I'm keeping hold of the good stuff, letting go of the rest that can wash away. So, and overnight, actually, after the new moon in the afternoon, the moon will then meet up with Mercury going retrograde. So the first connection that is made is with that planet that's trying to bring this beautiful insight and a reshaping of your vision of things. So really pay attention to your dreams on Sunday night as well, because you might get some really important information that comes through overnight, that's something that's really divine, frankly. So I hope that's been helpful. Quite a lot going on. I hope you have a really, really beautiful time with all of this energy. Have a very blessed new moon in Pisces. And the question I will leave you with, that I think all of this is asking, is what has brought you to where you are in the cycle that you find yourself now? How have you got here? What has transported you, if you like? Really take some time. This is all about the remix. So that song that's been playing for you for however many years now, this is where we get some Uranus coming in there just to funk things up a little bit, make it a bit more exciting, put your own spin on things. Okay, so see how the remix is going to shape up for you, and have a really wonderful week. Thanks so much for watching. Please support my channel. Subscribe with the subscribe button, then you won't miss anything. And please make sure on my Facebook page that you've liked my page and you're following it. I get a lot of interaction from people that aren't actually following me yet, and it does actually really support my work and help bring it to other people if you do just click that like button. And also you get more things on there, going on there, my announcements, everything usually is done through Facebook. So just make sure you're following me. And thank you so much for watching. I'll shush now. Have a beautiful week. Goodbye. Lots of love.